Thank you, Tom. Good morning. Busy time for Secretary of State Blinken between Ukraine, Middle East. We'll have more on that from our national correspondents. Thank you, Tom. Good morning, New Hampshire. Good morning up into Portland, Maine. We're into Tuesday here on the eve of our 12-hour broadcast tomorrow for Veterans Count Part of Easter Seals, the only 12-hour commercial-free radiothon or telethon in the country exclusively devoted for veterans. Governor Sununu declaring tomorrow, make 12 hours count for Veterans Count, my 10th annual. So tomorrow morning, please tune in for our veterans. Very, very important. But good morning on a Tuesday, Jedi. Good morning. We're going to be in the mid to upper 70s. We're actually going to feel pretty warm out there. Enjoy it as we get going. Got a full show for you. Michael Cohen back on the stand at the hush money trial in New York and Manhattan. We'll hear from some of our correspondents on that and a whole lot more as we get going this morning. As I said, busy time. But we're going to switch gears and start out of the gate with a newsmaker. And delighted to welcome in current executive counselor and Democrat running for governor, Cindy Warmington of the Concord area. Good morning. Thanks for being with us. All right, appreciate it. Well, we're starting off here on a Tuesday, and we're not that far away from the fall elections, as you know, Cindy Warmington, but we have the primary first. And it was interesting recently, I had Kelly Ayotte, former U.S. Senator, Republican candidate for governor, as you know, on my show, and you had put out a statement that you offered to debate her before the primary on abortion rights. And I asked her on my show if she would debate you, and she said she would. She said she'd be happy to debate you on your past record on Big Pharma. And here's a statement from her campaign. I'm going to let you respond. This is from the AI campaign when I asked them after you said you debate if she would early, and I love to moderate debates, and you're welcome anytime here, by the way. If the AI campaign said if the Democrats nominate such a flawed candidate, Kelly will be happy to point out Cindy's despicable record on lobbying for Purdue Pharma and promoting their dangerous lies about OxyContin, but no mention of a debate before the primary. What's your reaction to that? And I think this is going to be a very big debate issue nationally and locally, Cindy Warmington, when the elections come, the abortion rights question. Certainly, it's a galvanizing motivational issue now that it's gone to the states. New Hampshire basically has a law. My understanding currently is through the first 6 months, no restrictions. Restrictions in the last 3 months only. I think Kelly Ayotte has said on my show she supports that. Are you saying that if she were elected governor, she'd work to chip that away further? Hmm. Right. What's your position on this? Do you support the current law? Do you support any restrictions on abortion, even in the last trimester? Hmm. Hmm. Right. You listen to Cindy Warmington, Democrat candidate for governor, current executive council. You mentioned Donald Trump and referenced Kelly AI. Governor Chris Sununu also, as you know, counselor, had been critical of Donald Trump, now saying he'll support him, the presumptive nominee, and vote for him, as will Kelly AI. What's your reaction to both the sort of the positions now that they'll support Trump? What, what do you? I'm sorry. No, no, I'm sorry. Finish. I'll let you finish. Right. You mentioned that, and of course, I mentioned the Michael Cohen trial in the outset. Just real quickly, I don't want to get into the national stuff, but what do you, with all the cases, the indictments, all the trials, and all that? Why do you think that in the ABC, CNN, and even New York Times poll that Trump is now leading in the six key battleground states over Joe Biden if he's so bad? I'm just curious. Why is he doing? Maybe it's just a poll, and maybe it's early, but why do you think Trump is doing better than some people would think? Right. Let me ask you this one. You mentioned, well, as a executive counselor, I had Governor Sununu on my show. I think it was fairly recently. It might have been when you announced you were running for governor. I asked him just your reaction. He actually was quite complimentary of you as an executive counselor. If I remember right, I don't have my notes in front of me. So he praised you for always being prepared and very sharp. And he said you were a very, I don't know, complimentary to you as an executive counselor. Let me flip the coin. You as an executive counselor, we're now running for governor, the job Governor Sununu's had as a Democrat. How would you rate Governor Sununu's performance as governor for the past four terms? Hmm. Hmm. Wait, real quickly, Joyce Craig, your Democrat challenger or opponent, if you will, in the primary. Why do you think you're the best to win the primary and represent the Democrats in the governor's race? And how do you differentiate yourself from Joyce Craig? And do you think she's done an effective job as mayor of the state's largest city in the past? Do you think Joyce Craig did a good job as mayor of the largest city? And finally, Chris Pappas was on my show just a week or so, just last week, and I one thing he was talking about is he's calling on President Biden with fellow Democrats to take more executive action to secure the southern border. The governor has talked about that as well. Here, it's become a kind of a local issue. Do you support what Representative Pappas is asking President Biden to do, or not? Do you think that Biden's done a good job on the border? All right, Cindy Warrington, thanks for the time this morning. Good morning, Hampshire, the pulse of an H across our listening region. We'll get you back again soon. Make it a good Tuesday. All right. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to update you on some of the news happening beyond here at home. But here at home, of course, tomorrow we'll be in the middle of our 12-hour broadcast. Make 12 hours count for Veterans Count. Jack Heath, J Dog on the boards. Back in a few. All right, we got a bit. Well, we have a busy day going on news wise, and you heard some stuff. You heard some ABC News. Tom Rivers talking about the Ukraine, and that's a serious situation. Middle East continues to be a serious situation. It's just just about everything around us, right? The economy, inflation. But other than that, the heavy stuff isn't coming down for a while. Hey, we have a nice looking Tuesday in terms of milder temperatures. Going to be in the mid to upper 70s. And we have a full show for you coming up. We are going to hear a little bit earlier today than tomorrow from our friends at the Manchester VA. We'll get some analysis on the latest of what's happening more in New York and then in Manhattan, the so-called hush money trial. I keep saying I have no idea. I honestly am perplexed and speechless. Zero idea how CNN in particular is going to survive after a few weeks from now without the hush money trial and Stormy Daniels and Trump and all that stuff happening in Manhattan. I don't know how they're going to get by on the ratings. You know what's amazing? And I did ask one of the Democrats who's running for governor just a moment or two ago, who's obviously highly critical of Donald Trump. If all this court stuff and these indictments and the trials in Manhattan and so forth are so bad, why is in the key states CNN, not Fox, CNN, ABC, New York Times, why is Trump widening a lead on Joe Biden right now? And I think it's pretty clear. The economy is not getting comfortable for consumers who pay the bills. Inflation is everything so darn expensive. People are concerned about the southern border with Mexico and the U.S. and basically an unchecked flow of asylum seekers and all that problems and that it causes and so forth. Even Chris Pappas, a Democrat representative in the first district here, calling on Joe Biden to take executive action to secure the border and lower those numbers, something he already could have done. It's amazing he all the executive orders, people just seemingly conveniently forget. Joe Biden undid all the Trump orders when Biden got in the White House that basically opened up made that border problem worse. So we'll keep an eye on that. You know, someone was sharing with me a stat earlier. I think it was Michael Graham, New Hampshire Journal. I just want to share this. Since this is a story, I don't know if you knew this. Uh, since Joe Biden became president, where is it? He sent me a note earlier. I think the increase of just undocumented migrants from Brazil, just from Brazil, basically went up 114% in the first few months of the Biden administration. So we'll see where all this goes, but certainly it's a problem and a concern. And then you have the situation in the Middle East, situation in Ukraine, law and order. But other than that, things are hunky dory. So I think that's why you're seeing the polls where they are. Well, we'll see it's hard to say. We're at that point now. We're not that far away, and people are waiting to kind of get into some warmer, sunny weather. And Memorial Day's around the corner, hard to believe. And then we get into the summer, and then all of a sudden you have the primaries heat up. And we'll be keeping you posted on all the above. Some of the other news talk happening on this Tuesday morning. J-Dog, you had some interesting news out of the NFL on some sneak previews on opening the first game. We're going to have the full schedule shortly. Monday night, you even had a preview of Monday Night Football. Little leaks. Oh, I didn't know. I never forgot he went to Berkeley. Yeah. Oh, really? Right away. Can we go back to the Brady debut as commentator? Because we all know how Gronk kind of get going. You have Tony Romo, then you have Troy Aikman, with Joe Buck, right? And I just think Brady's gonna probably do pretty okay because he prepares at everything so well. And he I just but there's not an automatic. I mean, look how tough fans have been on Tony Romo. When he first came in to do the play, the analysis, they loved him because you could see he really knew the game. And then all of a sudden his voice started bugging some people. Yeah, it's tough, and I just think Troy Aikman is such a solid. I just think he's great in the booth. I just think he's really good, and he calls a good game. Him and Joe Buck are a pretty good team. I think they get to know each other well. It's almost like you and me. You get to know each other's moves. You get the instincts. But how do you think is Brady going to kind of be his own guy? Does he pair up with someone? How do you think he's going to do? He's just going to be doing, but is he going to be paired with one person? One. Oh, he'll. Okay, so you think? How do you think he's going to do? Do you really? Mhm, mhm. Oh, I didn't know that, yeah. Mhm. Yep, yep. Wow. So he did kinda a little repertoire. But you know Brady, he's been practicing. Don't kid yourself. He's probably been doing simulations, he's probably got a coach. He's a smart dude, and he can. Hey, real quick, I didn't watch it much last night. I ended up watching well, let's just say a Law& and Order type movie, espionage, but no games on site. But, J-Dog, I watched about a half hour on Netflix. I think it's just called Broke. And they go through all these pro athletes, J Dog, that had gotten the big salaries, and after 4 or 5 years, wound up literally broke. They like $10 million signing bonus, 6 million a year, football, basketball. They went through and they sit down. They get all these players just talking about how they basically bought too much, spent too much, blew through the money, and then it stopped coming in. And all of a sudden, they wound up broke. Like $20 million 4 years later, they're broke. Well, the big thing that a lot of the, older players are now mentoring is a lot of these players go from, you know, college football, hanging out, playing football in high school, been a football player their whole life if football is a sport. And then all of a sudden they're not really prepared to manage that much wealth that quickly. Their wife, a lot of the players interviewed said, the biggest thing for me was I went from like, having a little bit of money in my pocket to being able to buy anything I wanted. Like a $500,000 car, a yacht, a house. A lot of them would buy like a big home for their mother and father, which was nice. And then all of a sudden, if they got hurt or injured and they didn't get renewed, they had such overhead that they literally went broke quickly. I know, I know, I know. All right. Hey, we're going to take a quick break. More of my interview with Cindy Warmington out of the gate this morning. She's a Democrat. She's executive counselor. She's one of the main Democrats running for governor. Her interview this morning, we covered a bunch of stuff and really going at Kelly Ayotte in particular. Chuck Morse, of course, big Republican name running as well for governor, former Senate president, former U.S. Senate candidate. But Warmington really singling out Ayotte, questioning her record on abortion, wanting to kind of go at her, maybe single her out. Warmington, of course, trying to become the more favorite of the two. But she's running against Joyce Craig, the former mayor of Manchester. And Joyce Craig has formidable support, a lot of endorsements if they matter. Maybe they do, raising a bunch of money. So it's Warmington Craig, but Warmington trying that tactic of making it Cindy Warmington Kelly Ayotte already. But she has to get through that primary. When I asked her questions about Joyce Craig, what makes them different, do you think she did a good job as mayor of Manchester, our state's largest city? She kind of did an indirect criticism, saying at the end, well, after she was mayor, the Republican won the mayor's race and they won the board. So I'll let that speak for itself. Also talked to her about the southern border, Governor Sununu as well, her thoughts on his job as governor, and a whole lot more. You catch that whole interview coming up online on the Pulse of an H in a little bit and in the next 2 hours. We're going to come back to Brad Card, one of our political analysts and all stars, with some look at the stuff out of DC. A little bit later on, we'll get an update from friends at Manchester VA. Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play the Pulse of an H. Back in a few. Usually, with our next expert, Brad Card, one of our political analysts and all stars, Card and Associates out of DC, keeps a close watch on Congress for us in the White House. But, Brad, we'll start locally with you for a moment because you know the landscape well here. We just had one of the Democrats running for governor, Cindy Warmington, live on the show to kick off the 9 o'clock hour. She's an executive counselor, as you know, Democrat running. Her main challenger is Joyce Craig. And it's going to be a pretty serious primary, but Warmington and Craig have been trying to engage Kelly Ayotte more than they have each other, Brad, which is not unusual. But I finally asked Cindy Warmington her thoughts on Joyce Craig. How do you differentiate yourself? And what kind of job do you think she did as mayor of Manchester? Sort of the first shot or salvo of this primary batch. She said, well, I'm not going to really, but I will say it's interesting after she was mayor, the Republican won the mayor's race and the Republicans won the board there. And I'll leave it at that. So, what's the strategy here? And how do you see, because, Chuck Morris, Kelly Ayotte, the main Republicans, how do you see this governor's sort of the primaries unfolding and, kind of who has the upper hand here, do you think? Yeah, and it's a tough spot. It will be interesting. This state's going to be hard to understand because even though we have a smaller number of electoral college votes, they might matter in a tight race, and it's really the independent voters here, Brad, that are going to swing and make a difference. And it's hard to tell right now where they're going to swing to, what side of the seesaw. It's almost impossible right now. You would think that you. I mean, hold on. No, hold on. You would think right now Joe Biden has New Hampshire in the bag. You would think there's no question that Trump would do well in New Hampshire against Biden based on recent elections, right? But then Biden came up here right after the State of the Union. Joe Biden followed that. They seem concerned about New Hampshire. Brad Card, let me switch gears. Donald Trump's, because we know it's Joe Biden and Vice President Harris. Donald Trump is seems to be, and it seems to be changing. And of course, this time, and Trump's the marketing genius. I think even critics would have to concede that. So who knows what he's going to do? And I think it'll be his decision, not advisors, who he wants to pick as running mate. But he seems to be favoring and spending more time with Doug Burgum, of course, the governor of North Dakota. I would think he might be a more apt or able energy secretary, and maybe a Tim Scott. A few weeks ago you were hearing Marco Rubio, you were hearing other names, Tom Cotton, out of the Senate in Washington. But what are you? Do you have any inside baseball on what you're hearing on when and who it might be in the end? Well, the other thing I noticed a lot of people don't know, but Bergam was a co-founder of Great Western Software, or Great Plains Software. I think it was Great Plains Software, which sold to Microsoft, and he's done very well. He's like has a great upbringing. No, what I'm saying, he's done a great job as governor in terms of taxation and business in North Dakota. But I mean, he's got a lot of money, and sometimes that makes a difference when you're sort of self-funding a presidential campaign, Brad. Well, no, 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 no. What I'm saying is his way of funding a campaign is different than Joe Biden's. I mean, hold on, let me just say this. The other day, wait a minute, the other day in New Jersey, Trump got almost 100,000 people at a rally in a blue state. And then of course they go to the fundraising machine, and a lot of the money he's raising is going to his legal bills. But Trump brings the crowds out. He's not a traditional campaigner. In the past, you would even send Brad years ago. It's about campaign organization and raising money. Trump really didn't do either when he won in 2016. He shows up and he gets the rallies, but and Joe Biden is more of a fundraising candidate. And I'm just saying, sometimes it might be good to have a running mate who can write $100 million check. Yeah, I well, right. Well, right. Unlike it probably it doesn't have the splash factor that you think Trump would do, but sometimes that backfires. So you're right. He's the splash, right? So you don't need splash. Yeah, it's a good point. All right, Brad, we're gonna run Card and Associates on this Tuesday. Thanks, Brad. Tomorrow we're going 12 hours for our veterans. Veterans count. Thank you, Brad. Make 12 hours count for Veterans Count, benefiting Easter Seals. Check out the program today before tomorrow because we want you to call in. We'll tell you all about it. You can donate, make a big difference for awareness, support the veterans among us. Vetscount.org, vetscount.org. Go to the Pulse of New Hampshire as well, our app, our website, the Pulse of NH. You'll see my 10th annual Make 12 Hours Count for Veterans Count tomorrow. Governor Sununu proclaiming tomorrow, Wednesday, May 15th, Make 12 Hours Count for Veterans in New Hampshire. It's a big day, probably the single biggest day for veterans advocacy and awareness. It's 12 hours tomorrow, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Mike Pomp will kick it off. I come in at 9. Well, Renee Plummer will be here, and our regular. We're going to have a packed show for you. The families, the people who make, who really are the beekeepers, if you will, of our veterans. Back in a moment with an earlier update from Kevin Forrest, the Manchester VA. Next. All right, we are back on this Tuesday, and we're going to go a little bit earlier with our update from our friends at the Manchester VA because tomorrow we go 12 hours, our radiothon for veterans here in New Hampshire and the caregivers at Veterans Count, part of Easter Seals in New Hampshire. Kevin Forrest, the director of Manchester, the VA, the whole facility, and all the stuff here locally. And he joins us with an update. And I always love having Kevin on because they're doing a ton. And he has the Lauren, who's the acting chief of mental health. And this is a big area I want to discuss because this is a growing area that we need to do a better job across the board, Kevin, to support our veterans on the mental health side. Good morning. How are you? Don't tell me you're already back. Don't tell me you're already back. I thought you were gone for a month on that great in-house Virginia. You were doing some business leadership stuff for the VA. That went quickly. Yeah. Well, listen, I want to thank you. I didn't realize you were back, Kevin. I know you had a good, serious, organizational stuff, but you working with places like Veterans Count is a big part of it too. So thank you. Let's talk mental health. Take it away, Kevin. Thank you, Lauren. Hmm. Hmm. Right. And Lauren and Kevin, we have one of our healthcare advocates and sponsors, the folks. Jen, help me out. Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield, the CEO, Maria Prue, has a very good line about you know, mental health, and, anxiety, depression, and all the things of mental health, it should be part of primary care, not a secondary thing, because if a person's not feeling well emotionally, mentally, then how can they be well physically? And I think if we can make it more of a primary care and integrate it like you are, that's really important. Yeah, I agree. And go ahead, Lauren. Hmm. Good stuff. Hmm. Good point. Good point. Well, good to have you back, Kevin and Lauren. Thanks for what you do. Kevin, you're welcome to check in tomorrow. You're always welcome as we go 12 hours, but thank you for giving us an update this morning. We'll catch you real soon. Kevin Forrest and Lauren with the Manchester VA and beyond. Thank you both. All right. When we come back, we are going to introduce you to a person who lives in New Hampshire. He's a national veteran advocate, and he's written a book, a pretty good book. Aaron Real, NBC News Radio national correspondent, coming up in a little bit, talking about a Chinese retail giant trying to bump Amazon to the curb, if you will. Hey, Google. Hey, Alexa. Play the pulse of NH. J Dog on the boards. Thousands listening each morning, streaming on any smart device. Back in a moment.